whenever someone has asked me where I have graduated from, I've always said Star TV. You've guessed who I'm talking about, right? And that was my institution of learning. I learned not only what to do, but also what not to do. And like in any institution of learning, there always is that one or two professors whom you remember and have learned the most from. For me, one of them was Peter Mukerjea, who started as a professor, but eventually became the principal. So that's a LinkedIn post from Monica, now Mega.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're the wealthiest man, Peter. That's what people talk about you.
I am the what?
You're the wealthiest man. This is
Wealthiest.
the real wealth, right?
Wow, it is actually. It's seriously valuable. I don't know about wealth personally, but I think it's to do with value. And I'm delighted, firstly, to be here, to be talking to you, and thank you for having me here. Monica, Mega. Now Mega, but I still get confused sometimes, but I try and kind of, navigate around that.
That's right.
But, she has been one of the, the oldest, I would say, colleagues of mine at...
The youngest, oldest colleagues
at Star.
Yeah.
So when I joined, she was already there, right? So I didn't have the the fortune to be able to recruit her myself.
Right.
She'd already been recruited, but
2000
she was
batch. Before 2000.
Yeah, way back, early 90s.
Yeah.
All right. So I think her personality fit was so good that there was absolutely no question of her not being a success.
Yeah.
All right. She was going to be something which she is clearly now, and she's going to go on to greater things, I'm sure, in the near future. Very kind of Monica to say these wonderful words.
So it's not only Monica. The reason I said you're the wealthiest today is because I've chatted with a lot of your colleagues who worked with you in Star, and everyone has had great things to say. So I met Sumo in Dubai, and he spoke so highly of you. We had dinner, Monica, Sumo, and I'm talking about 4 years back. Samir speaks. I did a Chrome Talkies with Samir.
Okay.
He now heads Applause.
Yes.
So not only the love and affection, they are great managers, because practically anyone who's somebody running a media business today,
sure,
in all likelihood is either from the Star or the Times graduation of 2000, right?
Sure.
So how do you build such, is it like...
I don't know. I think there's no hard and fast sort of, data and factual kind of methodology linked to it. I think you've got to be very fortunate. You've got to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
You've got to be looking at, people who you're likely to hire with a today and tomorrow perspective. So you look at them in terms of the job that you have at hand that you're looking to fill, for example, or also, I would say, looking at how these people are going to turn out in, say, 3, maybe 5, maybe 7, maybe longer periods of time.
Yeah.
And you really got to build, you're building an institution, right? You're building you're not doing it from a, quarterly perspective or an annual perspective. You're doing it, say, listen, I'm going to build something which is going to be long lasting. It's going to kind of be sustainable. People that are, working in that organization are going to be there for some length of time. Right? And with that, they're going to grow, the organization's going to grow.
Yeah.
And ideally, you never want them to leave, but everybody has a sell-by date.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you got to try and push that sell-by. You got to visualize.
Push it as forward as you can.
Well, yeah, and you got to visualize how far that sell-by date might likely to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's in a way what I had in mind when we were recruiting people and building a team. And building a team is not about individuals, whilst on one hand it is, but it is about how they play as part of a team.
Yeah.
Right? Now, how we all kind of integrate, right? How we get on when we're on the field and we're off the field.
Yeah.
Right? So using a sort of sporting analogy, I would say, you can't be a set of individuals working in that team. You are, literally a team which have individual skills. Yeah. Right? So you got a great goalkeeper, or you got a great wicketkeeper, and you got a great sort of opening batsman, you got a great bowlers. All of them come together. When the going gets tough, that's the team that come together.
So what's most important? So the challenges that we face running, I think the biggest challenge is getting the right people. And if you have to evaluate between skills, attitude, and education, if you were to broadly put into the three parameters, what did you go for when you built the team?
Look, I'd say
I don't think education really mattered to you, right? Or did
well,
it?
of course it did. I think they had to be that they had to
Very
be
well spoken,
they had to be educated to a certain extent, right?
Right.
I mean, they couldn't be illiterate.
Yeah.
But I think attitude, out of those three things, attitude was very much top of the list.
And how do you make out of an attitude in an interview?
Comes through very clearly.
During an interview?
Absolutely. Now, whether it's something that I have maybe I'm fortunate to be able to kind of pick that out.
You want to help me
Right.
recruit people in my company?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
Can I send them to a
Anytime.
Zoom call interview with you? Yeah.
Well, I don't know about Zoom. I'm not very.
Okay.
I'm not very.
So I'll send them to
I'm
go
not
to
sure
the-
yet whether Zoom necessarily brings out that level of transparency. I think Zoom can be quite
It's more
deceptive.
of a one-on-one.
Yeah, it has to be. When you're hiring for for the long term, then I don't think you can necessarily only do it on Zoom. Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing it right now.
Yeah.
But I think you leave some stones
Yeah.
unturned.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is
right.
not the idea of the
Right.
exercise.
Right. So the attitude comes out during an interview. Anything on the capability you can make out if a guy is like really going
Well, look, either they've got some past experience or they're open-minded enough to be
freshers, right?
to
So
be
you hired
molded.
a lot of freshers. Star
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like the beginning of
Of
creating
course
a
they
new
were,
set
because
of people.
because that's where you can mold people in a certain way of working. You don't have to kind of have them, first unlearn bad habits, right? So they come to you almost like a fresh sheet of paper,
That's right.
right? And you can start from there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have something which has already been scribbled on,
Yeah.
then you've got to kind of erase that first.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, people who drive in India trying to go and drive in Dubai. You can't do it,
Yeah.
right? So their first has to
One
be
in the left and right hand well as well.
well,
So
that
that's
of
a
course,
bigger
but
issue.
I think, but also the fact that there are rules, and you can't just go wherever you feel like without any
Yeah.
consideration for road signs.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to unlearn all the bad habits,
Yeah.
and then you can start afresh and take the driving test.
Yeah.
So I think it's very similar to that. So from my point of view, it was very important to actually have people who were as fresh and freshers into the business, straight out of college. A couple of them were dropouts, right? And I think those guys are generally very, very enthusiastic, full of energy, and they're really wanting to prove something.
Yeah.
Because they didn't see themselves fitting into a traditional college kind of environment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's right. So they say you don't build businesses, right? You build people who actually build the businesses for you. Practically, so I can name a few of them because we work with them. So Samir went on. He got a lot of credit for KBC.
Of course.
Now, in terms of production, practically everything that's coming out of Applause, it's topping the
charts.
OTT platforms.
Yeah.
Megha Discovery.
Indeed.
Right? So she's doing pretty well. Ajay Vidyasagar.
Of
Google,
course.
everyone, right? So was it like the star badge as well that got them into positions, or was it the fact that Star was always a startup the way it was run? It was always entrepreneurial, the way people ran around, the way people worked. And there are many times, once you have a strong badge behind you, it gets you another badge.
Yeah.
Could that play a role as well?
I think badges have
Value?
obviously has value, but also has a negative value sometimes.
Yeah.
Because people believe that these guys who have a particular badge have baggage that they come with,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes very hard to shake that.
Yeah.
And not every future employer wants somebody with either a big price tag or a big piece of baggage that they come with.
Yeah.
Could be ego, could
Yeah.
be all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I don't think the badge necessarily comes into play. I think it's
Yeah.
about an individual's personality.
Yeah.
I think it's individual skill sets, what they have achieved, what they've managed to demonstrate what they've achieved, right? They have to be able to kind of convince whoever their future employer is
Yeah.
that they are, capable of cutting the mustard,
Yeah.
right? In whatever the task set out for them,
Yeah.
right? And people like, I would say, of course, Samir, Megha,
Raj went on with
Megha,
Biocon.
Raj Nayak, Sumo,
Tarun Katyal.
Tarun Katyal, even people like Shailaja, Deepak Sehgal,
Yeah.
all of these guys are just, they really are precious jewels,
Yeah.
right? And any organization today that happens to have them on their kind of roster
Wow.
is, is very, very fortunate.
I'd love to hear that.
No,
Brilliant.
I'm not saying it
Absolutely.
just to kind of pump up their egos or anything of the sort. I think it's a fact, and they like the sort of four Andalusian horses in the movie Ben-Hur.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember seeing that.
Yeah.
It may be
Yeah.
a while bit
Yeah.
before your time, maybe, but when Ilderin was kind of running Ben-Hur through the kind of array of horses, and he said, "Look, these are my four beauties."
Yeah.
Right? He called them his beauties, and they were his jewels.
Yeah.
Right? And one was really strong. He said, "Listen, you got to go on the outside because you can hold the rest of them together without the sort of chariots going overboard." One was really quick. One was strong, and all of those. So that combination is what worked.
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing more that again is a conflict that happens in terms of empowerment and accountability.
Sure.
And integrity. So I'll tell you where I'm coming from. The biggest challenge we face in small businesses is how do you let go of and let someone else completely run the business. So in News Corp, you had all the autonomy, right? So you practically ran the business like an entrepreneur. And that itself brought in a lot of accountability.
Yeah.
Now that went down as well, right? Because most of your managers, they ran everything independently,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So how do you ensure accountability happens, and when there are huge sums of money involved, right? How do you track, how do you ensure that people, they don't go off track?
Well, look, I think
There's no formula to that, but
there is no formula. Look, I think it comes to when you're hiring them, you have to have a sense that their
you can
attitude,
make family backgrounds.
their attitude is right. There are some kinds of people I would simply never hire.
Okay.
Right? I won't go into that right now.
Yeah.
But there are some kinds of people I would never touch, not with a barge pole.
Yeah.
Right? But there are kinds of people I would certainly get, attracted to hiring or in terms of making them an offer. There had to be something to do with sports, ideally, if they have, a sporting kind of streak in their lives.
That's very important.
I think so. I think, you know how to play by the rules.
Yeah.
You play within boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? You have some basic structure to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how to get through that. And if you don't behave or you do something wrong in that sporting arena, you're fouled.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you go overboard, you're asked to leave the field. Right? And you've got to sit it out for some period of time, maybe a match, maybe two matches, and come back in.
Yeah.
So, I think those are the basic fundamentals that people kind of imbibe when they join an organization. It's not different. So I think attitude is very important. Empowerment, absolute.
Yeah.
So let people get on with it.
Yeah.
Don't tinker with their, with the nitty gritties.
That's right. So just sorry on the. So do you believe the fact that performance comes with quirks?
Yeah, of
Best
course it
performers,
does.
They do, right?
Yeah, sure.
Those who are always on time, leave on time, spend the whole day. They're probably not the top end performers, right?
Well, I don't know.
Performers will always have something going with them.
No, there's not necessarily a hard and fast
Have you noticed
rule
that
on
during your
concept.
tenure?
I think there are, there's horses for courses.
Yeah.
All right. There's no doubt about it. You can't say everybody that comes out of an IIM is going to be, perfect for a particular kind
Not
of role.
necessarily.
No, it
That's
doesn't
right.
work
That's
like
right.
that. And so critical that you get your hiring right. Integrity, very important.
Very important.
Right?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean, and part of that comes with how you compensate people.
Yeah.
Right? Do you give them their expenses on time?
Yeah.
Right? Do you encourage them to be taking their, annual leave? Okay, so we were all on first
So
name.
they don't burn out, right?
We were all on
Absolutely.
first name terms.
I remember we were mandated to take leaves.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
So important. So
Because
important.
and if you didn't, then there was something wrong.
Yeah.
I always thought somebody who never took any leave was up to some mischief, right?
Yeah.
Because he or she would then be kind of doing something that he didn't want anybody else to know,
Yeah.
and therefore he was not going on leave,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think you've got to read between the lines when you're hiring people.
Yeah.
So I think empowerment comes from that.
Yeah.
Integrity, absolute, no question, right? And I think we were one of those organizations in the business where, integrity played a very, very important role.
Absolutely.
And if there was ever any situation or occasion when somebody was found to have, diddled on their expenses or something, if it's a tiny thing, you kind of tend to overlook it and you say, listen, behave yourself.
Yeah.
You can't get through life doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if it's anything which was a little bit more kind of severe than that,
Yeah.
then there's no two ways about it. You just
Absolutely.
wouldn't tolerate it and you say, listen, thanks very much.
Absolutely.
Off you go.
Absolutely.
so I think empowerment was part and parcel of that. So you give somebody a responsibility to do a job and let them get on with it and come back to you with the results, right? And if you keep, this is a great little anecdote about, I think, Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw.
Yeah.
You know, I met him, fortunately, in a airport lounge area, and we got chatting. And because my parents were both in the army, we had some sort of affinity on that
Oh,
front.
wow, okay.
Yeah, they were both doctors, and they were both serving, officers in the Indian Army. So anyway, I got chatting to Sam Manekshaw, and he narrated a little tale to me, and he said, when the Bangladesh war was on, the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi had told him to go and do something, and would call him every few minutes to find out whether
It was done.
whether it was happening.
Yeah,
And he responded to her and said, "Ma'am, there's only one pilot on this flight,
that's me.
and that's me. If you would like to fly the plane, please come and fly the plane,
You
and
don't
I'll
need
get off." And I think that's the
Micromanagement.
and that's the philosophy that I think, we tried. I didn't know of this anecdote at that time, but that is exactly what we tried to do, when we were running it. So give somebody a task, let them get on with it. They're going to perform to the best of their ability. So you hope to God that you got the right person in the job.
Yeah. So Star went on, if I'm right, went on from an acquisition of, we're talking about early mid 90s, from an acquisition of some $800 million by Murdoch to a recent, the entire News Corp at about $70 billion. A major chunk of that, obviously, Star had a role to play on that. And you were instrumental in building that.
To some
part of the
extent.
Star?
To some extent.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah. And KBC would be one of the 10 poles on Star?
Well, without doubt. I think KBC and a whole bunch of other programs. And it was not just about KBC, it was also about sport in many ways. It was about music. It was about,
But the 10 pole, the flagship was always Star Plus, right? And everything
of
was
course,
right on.
that's
And
where the
distribution-
largest revenue came from.
Yeah, and within that, it was the 9 p.m. slot on KBC and the K series. So, very interesting numbers. So, I still remember KBC would garner a TVR of almost 10. Never happened before, right? And what a TVR of 10 would mean, on prime time, all TVRs would add up to 40. And this meant that if KBC got a 10, 1 out of 4 people watching TV saw the whole episode of KBC.
That's correct.
Or
Yeah.
2 out of 4, 1 out of 2 saw half of it, or every single one on TV watched at least 15 minutes of KBC.
Sure.
Unheard of numbers.
Well, it really was a unique
Did that
period.
really define everything that happened to Star? The way you guys worked and the money's flowed in and you expanded?
Well,
Or I
you
don't-
say,
Because that's the time when I joined Star in 2000.
you say money flowed in. If you say it quickly, it doesn't sound painful.
Yeah.
Right? But it was really hard work. The money
Yeah.
just didn't just flow in.
Yeah.
It took
The great gents and the ladies who are working
No,
there.
it took an awful lot of effort at the coalface to make that happen.
Yeah.
Advertisers by their very nature are tight with money. They don't like to part with it. They want all the freebies they can get. And I think, the teams that were selling KBC and all of the general entertainment programs at the time had to do, I would say, a viciously hard job.
Yeah.
It didn't, as you say, money just didn't flow in.
Yeah,
I
I agree
think
with
it's a myth.
But I
that,
think it was more
say how
of a
money
pull
flowed in.
and a push. The content was strong enough to attract a lot of money.
Well, absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
Because otherwise you're only constantly pushing, which really doesn't get you that far.
Well, of course, and the beauty about television,
Yeah.
in one way, is that nobody guarantees any ratings.
That's right.
Okay, so when you set out in the year, nobody says, "Listen, this show is going to deliver a 4 or a 5 or a 10 or
But
whatever."
there's an incentive based to the
that's,
delivery.
but that's fine. But there's no guarantee. However, when you start the year from a financial and a
So I'm sorry
revenue,
to cut- yeah.
no, from a revenue point of view, you start the year with a number, and you say, "I'm going to get to run this business.
Yeah.
I need to get X amount of revenue."
Right.
Right. So you have to go for that revenue,
Yeah.
irrespective
Yeah.
of how the shows perform.
Your team had to guarantee you those ratings.
Well, they
So
didn't.
I'll tell you why. Because if you recall, in 2000s, the top 50 out of 50 shows were Star.
Yes.
And somewhere around 2001, it was like 47 shows only. And there was panic. And that started right from your office.
Yeah.
right? So that was the dominance, right? That was
Well-
so that was panic. So that was guarantees of getting the top shows, right?
Well, it was there was no guarantees, right?
Yeah. But did you really panic, or did you just create the panic?
No,
that
of course we panicked.
You
know.
panicked? You
Well,
really panicked?
You know, you never want to fall off the top of the perch, right?
time? Top 50 out of 50.
Yeah, you never want to fall off. Having got to it, it's really hard to stay
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And I think this was the irony in all of this. We're talking about the same whole thing about 20 years later, and it's still
Yeah.
a sense of excitement to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's all the people that I've spoken to since the publishing of my book
Yeah.
have been kind of delighted with the sort of walk down memory lane.
Yeah.
Right? Lots has changed, lots of water's flown under the bridge, lots of things have happened, companies have moved, companies been bought, companies been sold, there's been new people are fired, people are hired, all kinds of things have happened, right? But when people are walking down these pages of this, of this book, Starstruck, then I think they at the end of it, they kind of generally feel quite warm and fuzzy about it and feel, that was enjoyable.
But
I enjoyed reading that.
Anyone who's a Star 2000, 2005 batch, when they meet, they talk, and we have a gala time, remembering those
Well,
days.
absolutely.
They're the best times, right? There was a lot of money. There was a lot of money. It was in abundance in the sense there was good time to invest. We all invested. We worked really hard. We partied really hard. Offsites used to happen every few months.
Yes.
Right. So those were amazing times, and I think thanks to KBCs and a few great decisions,
Yeah,
lots
yeah.
of great decisions, right? From KBCs to the K series to a lot of content.
Yeah.
Right. That brings me to my last thing. You spend more time managing internal affairs, internal operations, to put it correctly, or as in charge of a business, you are more sucked into external relationships, external interferences. Because as an entrepreneur, we face a lot of that, right? So operations, there's a problem, and then while you're trying to sort out the internal issues, then you've got something got to do with the government, with lobbying, with something or the other keeps going.
Sure.
So yours was internal, external. What was
Well,
yours?
I think it was, I can't remember exactly now, but I would say it was sort of about 25% internal.
Okay, so you had Samir running most
Well,
of the CEO.
Samir and a bunch of other people who were running their own gigs at the time within the business.
Yeah.
And you had to be confident that they were able to run with it.
Yeah.
Right? And if they had a problem, they'd call. But if they didn't, they'd just get on with what they had to do. And Samir, for example, was a terrific kind of general to have.
Yeah.
And my philosophy has always been, look, if you have a dog, you don't bark yourself. Right? So if you're going to give somebody the task of running programming, then I'm not going to sit there and say, listen, why don't you, let's do something with that producer, or let's do something with that producer, or with that show.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you let the person just simply get on and, do the best job they can.
So winners party and
Winners have parties, losers have meetings. And that's something I learned from my ex-CEO called Gary Davey.
Yeah.
And he, completely imbibed that kind of philosophy.
Yeah.
And injected that into all of us, and certainly into me. And so, tried very hard to keep that going as long as we possibly could. And I think it worked. It worked for us.
Absolutely. And we will party in Goa.
Definitely.
You're in Goa, and so will I be.
Definitely.
There. And wonderful chatting up with you.
Pankaj, thank you very much.
And we meet soon in Goa.
Yeah, look forward.
Lovely chatting.
Look forward. Take
and
care.
Great to see you again, Peter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Thank you.